In the spring of 1720, the smartest man alive made one of the worst investments in history. His name was Isaac Newton. He had decoded gravity, he had mapped the motion of the planets, he had split white light into color. He understood the machinery of the universe better than any human who had ever lived. And in a single year, one stock took roughly 20,000 pounds from him, a fortune, the equivalent of millions today. He didn't lose it because he was careless. He lost it twice, selling out a rich man, then buying back in at the very top. Afterwards, he is said to have admitted something no equation could ever fix. I can calculate the motion of the heavenly bodies, but not the madness of people. So here is the question this file has to answer. How does the greatest mind in the world get destroyed by a single share price? To understand that, you have to understand the company underneath it and the secret it was built to hide. This is the story of the South Sea Company, and of the bubble it gave its name to, the very first time that word ever meant money. The South Sea Company was born in 1711, in a Britain buried under debt. 2 decades of war had left the government, owing tens of millions of pounds it had no way to repay. The company's name promised the cure. The South Seas, the coasts of Spanish America, rumored to be paved with gold and silver. A monopoly on that trade, handed to one company backed by Parliament. It sounded like the future, ships sailing west, returning heavy with treasure. By 1718, even the king agreed. George I accepted the role of company governor himself. The crown was on it, the smart money was on it, the whole country wanted in. Dukes bought it, shopkeepers bought it, Newton bought it. But almost nobody stopped to ask the one question that mattered. What did the South Sea Company actually sell? The honest answer is almost nothing. Its grand monopoly came down to a single contract, the Asiento, won by Britain in the Treaty of Utrecht in 1713, after the War of the Spanish Succession. And we should be clear about what the Asiento really was. It was the right to ship enslaved Africans to Spain's colonies. Thousands of human beings a year for 30 years. That was the company's real business. Not gold, not silver, the trade in people. And even that barely made money. Spain allowed only a trickle, a single permitted ship a year, and taxed and blocked the rest. The treasure of the South Seas never arrived. The Pacific gold was a rumor. The Silver Mountains were a story. By 1720, the company the whole nation was racing to buy had, in real terms, almost no profit to show. Which raises a harder question. If it barely traded, what exactly was everyone buying? The answer is the secret at the heart of this file. The South Sea Company wasn't really in the trading business. It was in the debt business. Remember the government, drowning in tens of millions of pounds it couldn't repay. In 1720, the company made the state an audacious offer. Hand us the national debt. Let the people the government owes swap their bonds for shares in us instead. About 30 million pounds of debt converted into South Sea stock. And buried inside that swap was a trick so elegant it would be copied for the next 300 years. The company got to set the price of its own shares. Think about what that means. The higher the share price, the fewer shares it had to hand over for each pound of debt. And the fewer it handed over, the more were left in its own vault to sell for cash. So the company had one job above selling anything real. Make its own stock go up and keep it going up forever. It wasn't a trading company with a rising share price. It was a rising share price, wearing a trading company as a costume. But a share price doesn't rise on its own. It rises on belief. And the South Sea Company manufactured belief like a factory. First, it bought the people who made the rules. Shares were handed to politicians, to courtiers, even to the king's mistresses, often without paying a penny up front. Given the stock on paper, free to sell it later for pure profit. If the price rose, they got rich for doing nothing but staying loyal. So they stayed loyal. Second, it sold a story. Mexican silver, Pacific gold, endless trade just over the horizon. Rumors planted, talked up, printed, repeated. Third, it let almost anyone play. You could buy shares in installments, a small payment down, the rest later. A clerk on a modest wage could suddenly own a slice of the richest company in Britain. And every new buyer pushed the price higher, which pulled in the next buyer. Price up, more buyers, price up, more buyers. A machine that ran on its own momentum, as long as the momentum never stopped. In the first months of 1720, the machine caught fire. In January, a share cost around £128. By spring it was 300, then 500. By the summer it touched £1,000 a share. An eightfold rise in months on a company that barely sold a thing. And London lost its mind. If one impossible company could mint fortunes, why not 100 more? Around 200 imitators erupted that year, each promising its own river of gold. People needed a word for these flimsy, swelling, ready-to-burst ventures. They called them bubbles. That is the year the word was born, 1720, and it has meant exactly this ever since. The legend tells of one promoter who advertised a company for carrying on an undertaking of great advantage, but nobody to know what it is. And still, the story goes, a queue formed to hand him money. Whether or not that one is true, it didn't need to be. The real companies were barely less absurd. And in the middle of it all stood Isaac Newton. Newton had been early. He had bought, watched it climb, and sold, walking away thousands of pounds richer. He had done the smart thing. He was out. And then he watched everyone around him keep getting richer. Friends, rivals, fools who understood nothing of mathematics growing wealthy by the week. And the greatest rational mind on earth did the most human thing imaginable. He bought back in, near the top. What rises on belief falls on belief. And belief is the most fragile thing there is. By the late summer of 1720, the men running the company were quietly doing one thing: selling. The insiders who set the price were cashing out of the very stock they were telling the public to buy. Then came an irony the company never saw coming. To kill its swarm of imitators, it had pushed Parliament to pass the Bubble Act, outlawing companies without a royal charter. The law worked, the imitators collapsed. But the panic didn't stop at them. It spread to the South Sea Company itself. From around £1,000, the share price fell. 500, 300, 200. By the autumn, it was back near 150, roughly where the madness had begun. Months of paper fortune gone in weeks. And Newton's second bet, the one he made with his heart instead of his head, went with it. Around £20,000, erased. A ruined nation wanted someone to pay. Parliament opened a secret committee and forced the company's books into the light. Inside, they found exactly what you'd expect. The bribes, the free shares, the politicians on the take. John Blunt, the chief architect of the scheme, was stripped of nearly everything. A fortune of around £180,000, cut down to 5. John Aislabie, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, the nation's finance minister, had taken £20,000 in shares to grease the deal. He was sent to the Tower of London. Directors' estates were seized to repay the people they had ruined. It was, for its moment, a real reckoning. More than Enron's bosses faced, far more than layman's. But notice who didn't fall. One man stepped through the wreckage and used it to take power. Robert Walpole shielded the most powerful names from the worst of the blame. They called him the Screen, and the Screen became, in all but name, the first Prime Minister of Britain. The system punished its architects and promoted the man who protected the system. Which brings us back to Newton. Why did the smartest man alive lose everything on a single stock? Not because his arithmetic failed him. His arithmetic was perfect. He lost because the South Sea share was never an arithmetic problem. There was no engine under it to measure. No real trade, no real profit, nothing to calculate. It was a story, and its only fuel was that everyone believed it at the same time. You can model a business. You cannot model the moment a crowd decides to believe. That is the thing Newton could not solve, and the thing that has never been solved since. The Bubble Act tried to make it illegal. It stayed on the books for over a century, and it failed. Because the machine didn't die in 1720. It just changed costumes. 200 years later, Charles Ponzi ran the same trick with envelopes and the promise of profit. 80 years after that, Enron ran it with accountants and a stock that only had to keep going up. The South Sea Company is the great-grandfather of them all. The first time a price floated free of anything real and took a nation with it. And the only honest warning ever written about it is the one line a broken genius left behind. You can calculate the heavens, but you cannot calculate the madness of people. It never went away, it just keeps learning new names.